maybe none of this will matter. That's what Jin-Woo told himself as the plane landed at Incheon Airport. He gripped the armrests tightly, his stomach twisting into knots. Jin-Woo, someone called as he stepped off the plane. It was Mr. Kim, Chairman Yu's secretary. But something was off. Mr. Kim's face looked tense, and his eyes were red, like he hadn't slept in days. "What's going on?" Jin-Woo asked. But before he could get an answer, Mr. Kim gestured for him to follow. "The car is waiting," he said quickly. Jin-Woo walked fast to keep up with Mr. Kim, who was practically jogging through the airport. The older man didn't say a word, but his expression told Jin-Woo everything. He was worried. Something big had happened, and now Jin-Woo's heart raced as he wondered what it could be. "Please come with me," Secretary Kim said, urgency in his voice. "What's happening?" Jin-Woo wanted to ask, but he was too scared of the answer. "We need to go now." Secretary Kim pushed him toward the exit. Jin-Woo froze. His legs felt heavy, like they were stuck to the floor. Secretary Kim placed a hand on Jin-Woo's shoulder. His face showed a mix of sadness and determination. "Jin-Woo, stay strong," Secretary Kim said softly. "I'll explain everything on the way." Jin-Woo's eyes filled with tears as Secretary Kim told him about Chairman Yu while they drove. At first, Jin-Woo couldn't accept what he was hearing. It felt unreal, but when they arrived at the hospital, and he saw his father lying asleep behind the glass partition, the truth hit him hard. Jin-Woo had always seen his dad as a strong, tough guy. So when he saw him lying in bed looking so weak and fragile, it shattered his heart. "Dad," he shouted. But the doctors stopped him before he could rush into the room. They explained that if Jin-Woo, who was still struggling to control his magic, got too close, his dad's condition might get even worse. Hearing this, Jin-Woo's face fell as the weight of the situation hit him hard. "I see." As a son, Jin-Woo had always been a disappointment to his father, but he never thought he wouldn't even get to hold his hand in his final moments. Just one more way he'd let him down. "Looks like I'm a useless son until the end," Jin-Woo muttered. Feeling hopeless, he turned away from his father, and there stood Secretary Kim, holding a black leather portfolio. "Huh? What's this?" Jin-Woo asked, taking it from Secretary Kim. It was something Chairman Yu was working on right before he collapsed. Secretary Kim explained, "I kept it with me in case he asks for it when he wakes up. But I think you need it more, Jin-Woo." Jin-Woo looked at Secretary Kim in surprise. "Me? Why would I need it?" He glanced at the portfolio in his hands, then slowly opened it. Inside he found newspaper clippings about his older brother Jin-Sung and older sister, Jin-Che. They were neatly organized like a scrapbook. Jin-Woo's eyes widened in confusion as he flipped through the pages. Why would Chairman Yu have this? He wondered aloud, but why? Like father, like son, Jin-Woo had always been curious about where his love for scrapbooking came from. It turned out, it all started with his dad. He couldn't believe his father had this kind of hobby. As he flipped through the scrapbook, he smiled at the photos of his brother and sister. When they were younger, they were his dad's pride and joy. From school competitions to talent shows, Jin-Woo's siblings were total rock stars in their own fields. No surprise, the scrapbook was packed with articles about them. Jin-Woo felt bad when he didn't see a single picture of himself, until he flipped to the last page, and stopped in his tracks. There it was, Jin-Woo Yu, Vice President of Ajin Guild. Or how about the 2 hunters heading to Japan? And don't forget the D-rank hunter's decision, brave or reckless. All of these were articles about him. Who knew? Jin-Woo's eyes widened as he stared at the stack of clippings. Even gossip columns and small-town articles had been saved neatly.
"Oh,"
he muttered, speechless. Suddenly, a newspaper clipping that wasn't fully cut out fluttered down to the floor. Jin-Woo's heart raced as he bent quickly to pick it up. The article showed a picture of him grinning for cameras after defeating the boss giant at battle. Jin-Woo had refused to take credit for. To Jin-Woo's shock, the article was dated today. Secretary Kim gently placed a hand on Jin-Woo's shoulder. "Chairman Yu loved you deeply, Jin-Woo. It's just that he had big dreams for you." Jin-Woo cried quietly for a while before wiping his tears and standing up. "Do you think there's any chance he could wake up?" he asked. Secretary Kim looked serious and shook his head. No one had ever come back from the final rest stage except for someone. Secretary Kim hesitated, then seemed to remember something. "By any chance, Jin-Woo?" Yes, it's nothing." "Never mind." Secretary Kim wanted to ask something desperately, but he didn't have the courage. Sometimes giving someone hope can hurt even more, so he kept his question to himself. Even though it was hard. Meanwhile, Jinyo's shadow stayed hidden and listened to their conversation without being noticed. Let's head home for now. Okay. Jinyo and Secretary Kim left Chairman Yu's hospital room. But here's what they didn't see. A sliver of darkness under Jinho slipped away just as the door shut. The door clicked shut, and then darkness. The lights flicked off on their own. Fast forward to the dead of night. When no one was around, a shadow crept out from beneath Chairman Yu's bed. With a whisper-soft whoosh, it morphed into something unexpected, a tiny shadow ant warrior. Jin-Woo's eyes zoomed in on Chairman Yu, and his heart raced. The ant soldier licked its lips, ready to pounce. But in a flash it vanished into the shadows, replaced by Jin-Woo. He had just used his shadow exchange skill. Even though he was hidden with stealth, Jin-Woo stayed alert, scanning the room carefully. It was as dark as coal, but thanks to his super sharp senses, everything stood out like it was daylight. His eyes sparkled as he scanned for any security cameras. I don't see any, he muttered under his breath. The only people nearby were 4 bodyguards posted outside the door. As long as Chairman Yu didn't suddenly wake up and start yelling, Jin-Woo was good to go. With a flicker, he turned off stealth. Plus hiss. His invisible form began to take shape, slowly becoming visible again. Jin-Woo was super careful not to slip up and reveal the elixir of life. Not long ago, Chairman Yo had tried to tempt him with a blank check, and promised any favor Jin-Woo wanted. But was that really out of kindness? Sure. Here's a more engaging and simplified version of your text. No way. Successful businessmen are experts at crunching numbers to get what they want, and Chairman Yu was the best in Korea. He wasn't just lucky he'd turned a small family business into one of the biggest companies in the world. He knew exactly how much a cure for his illness was worth, and had offered Jin-Woo an amazing deal. But not everyone is as fair as Chairman Yu. Desperate people often make bad decisions, so why add more problems to the mix? The world already has enough trouble. Jin-Woo knew better than to let the elixir of life slip out just because someone asked. It was way too important, and he wasn't about to risk everything for something that might not even work out. Plus, he figured people would spill the beans without thinking twice if pressured. So Jin-Woo decided to play it safe and wait. Turns out holding off didn't hurt Chairman Yu any more than he already was. And the treatment was still gonna be just as effective when the time was right. Sometimes waiting is the best move, especially when you're dealing with something as big as this. Jin-Woo was staying one step ahead, making sure everything went according to plan. Honestly, the only people who lost out were the investors in Eugene Construction, who sold their stock as soon as they heard about Chairman Yu's hospitalization. It looks like the stock market really is an all-or-nothing deal. Jin-Woo smiled, pulled out one of the 5 bottles of elixir of life from his inventory, and gave a thumbs up. Jin-Woo understood how hard it was to lose someone close. He'd been through that pain himself. So when he saw Jinyo in tears, he knew exactly what to do. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo carefully lifted Chairman Yu's upper body and opened the small bottle of glowing liquid. He tilted it slowly, letting the shimmering drops fall one by one into the chairman's mouth. Even though Chairman Yu was unconscious, his body seemed to know this was his last chance. Jin-Woo could see the lifeless look in his eyes start to fade as he swallowed each precious drop. After a few moments, Jin-Woo laid him back down gently and tucked the empty bottle away. Just like when Jin-Woo's mom had been saved. Years ago, Chairman Yu's pale face began to regain its color. His weak heartbeat grew stronger and steadier with every passing second. Jin-Woo smiled, feeling relieved. The elixir of life had worked its magic once again. Jin-Woo knew he had to escape the room before Chairman Yu stirred. He stood by the door ready to use his stealth ability. As the door slid open with a sudden noise, the guards' heads snapped towards it, their eyes wide with surprise. What was that? One of them muttered. Confusion etched on his face. But before they could figure it out, something even more startling caught their attention. Jin-Woo had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the faintest hint that he'd ever been there. The guards froze, their mouths hanging open in shock. The guards were totally shocked when Chairman Yu suddenly sat up straight. One guard stuttered. What? Another guard's eyes went wide as he screamed at the top of his lungs. Doctor! Doctor! He ran off to find help while the other 3 guards rushed into the room. Chairman Yu, they exclaimed. Are you okay? Chairman Yu looked super calm, like he'd just had a great night's sleep. Chairman Yu squinted at them, clearly confused. What's all this fuss? Who are you people anyway? He asked, his voice rough from sleep, or maybe something more. Before anyone could answer, Chairman Yu interrupted, frowning as he took in the room. It was a VIP hospital room, one he had set up for himself when he first learned about his condition. The sight made his heart skip a beat. Could it be? No way. He thought back to earlier events, his mind racing. Did I pass out and wake up again? He muttered, trying to piece together what had happened. Just then, a soft whooshing sound caught his attention. He turned toward it just in time to see the door on the other side of the glass wall slowly shut. The elevator made a gentle ding as its doors slid open, adding to the mystery of where he was and how he got there. Jin-Woo noticed a group of doctors rushing toward Chairman Yu's room. Before he got into the elevator, he suddenly remembered that it was Jin-Woo's birthday month. Even though it was a bit early, he wished him a happy birthday. Jin-Woo thought that finding a cure for his father would be the best gift Jin-Woo could ask for. With a satisfied smile, he pressed the button for the first floor. A man who followed him into the elevator stopped when he saw the button light up by itself. Wow. That's super creepy. Jin-Woo muttered to himself, thanks to his stealth skill being active. It looked like the man was alone in the elevator. The guy totally freaked out and ran off, saying, "Oh no way." Jin-Woo felt bad for scaring him. "Sorry dude," as he thought as he quickly pressed the button to close the doors. Once the elevator started moving, Jin-Woo decided it was a good time to check out one of his skills. Skill info. Skill eng chows, Shadow exchange. LV, 2, skill lems, job exclusive skills. No mana needed. Lets you swap places with one of your shadow soldiers instantly. Cooldown, you can't use it again for 3 hours after activating it. The time you have to wait before using a skill can change based on how good you are at it. For this guy, he had to wait about 2 hours before he could use SE Shadow Exchange Ek again. He still needed to get some shadow stuff from a couple of big monsters in Japan, so he decided to head back there. Since Jin-Woo had left a shadow overseas, a sort of bookmark in time, he could return there once the cooldown period was over. But that still left one big question. What was he supposed to do until then? He couldn't just go home. How would his mom react if he came back from Japan after a week, only to disappear again 2 hours later? That wouldn't make any sense. Jin-Woo stepped out of the elevator with a cheerful bendy. The doors slid open on the first floor, and he found himself wondering what he should do next. After leaving Seoul Ilshin Hospital, suddenly an idea popped into his head. What if he went searching for a dungeon that no one had claimed yet? Excited by the thought, Jin-Woo turned off his stealth skill and focused his senses. He could feel 4 or 5 gates nearby, each one a mystery waiting to be uncovered. Jin-Hee pulled out the association smartphone app and started searching. Then he spotted something exciting. 2 of the gates hadn't been reported yet.
Miss Yo, we're here. Someone said, thank you.
Jin-Hee, who was Chairman Yu's oldest daughter, had just returned to the hospital after taking her upset mother home. When she first heard about her dad's illness, it felt like everything in her world was falling apart. But she had believed her father when he reassured her. "I'm searching everywhere for a cure," he'd said. "I think I've found a good lead, so don't worry." If anyone else had said something like that about having a terminal illness, Jin-Hee wouldn't have believed them for 1 second. But this was her dad and she trusted him completely. But this was Chairman Myung-han Yu, a giant in Korea's financial world. So Jin-Hee had held on to hope, even when things looked really bad. She wiped away her tears as she remembered how her dad tried to hide his sadness when she moved abroad. If only she'd known how things would end up, she might have skipped studying overseas just to spend more time with him. Then, someone familiar walked by. Who was that? She was sure she'd seen him before, but before she could figure it out, he pulled down his hood and started walking faster. Like he knew she was staring, Jin-Hee watched him go with curiosity before hurrying on her way. It didn't matter who the man was. Jin-Hee nervously waited for the elevator when her phone suddenly rang. "Buzz burring," Dawn echoed loudly in the quiet, empty hospital lobby that night. Jin-Hee didn't recognize the number. She normally wouldn't pick up such calls, but something made her answer anyway. With everything that had happened in the past day, she felt like she should. Jin-Hee pressed the phone against her ear. "Hello?" she said. "Hello, this is Seoul Ilshin Hospital." A voice replied. "We're calling you because we couldn't reach your mom." Jin-Hee's heart skipped a beat. Her mom had been given medicine to help her sleep, so that made sense. But why was the hospital calling Hassan? And why did they sound so serious? Did something happen? Jin-hee asked, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause on the other end of the line. The thing is, Chairman Yo. Jin-hee's eyes grew wide with shock as she listened to what came next. It had to be some kind of joke. No way was the doctor serious, right? She bit back tears as she whispered. Are you serious? The doctor shook his head, looking just as shocked as she felt. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it myself. It's super rare for someone in their last stages of rest to wake up. Please hurry? We don't know when Chairman Yu will fall asleep again, someone urged. Wait. Hold on. Jin-hee's voice trembled. I'm already at the hospital. Ding. The elevator doors slid open right on cue, and Jin-hee nearly tumbled out. She couldn't believe what was happening. Could this really be happening? The short ride felt like forever. Ding. The doors opened again, and she darted straight to her father's room. The old man slowly turned, his eyes widening in surprise at the sight of her. No question about it. It was him from head to toe. Dad! Jin-hee exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. Myung Han-yu stood there, surrounded by doctors, staring at his daughter in disbelief. Jin-hee, he muttered, stunned. Dad! She shouted again, leaping into his arms. As he hugged her tightly, the reality hit him hard. He was alive. But how? Was this just some crazy coincidence? While the doctors talked about this amazing thing happening, Myung Han focused on his heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. He couldn't believe it. His heart was beating strong and steady, like a healthy young man's. And here he was, a guy over 50. His main doctor looked totally confused by the charts in front of him. How is any of this even possible? Myung Han asked carefully, his voice shaking a little. Is something wrong? Oh no. It's not bad at all. Not at all, said the doctor reassuringly before posing a question in turn. Sir, by any chance, did you take your medication for high blood pressure before taking these tests? Up until last night, Myung Han had been suspended in a state between life and death. After he woke up, he hadn't had the presence of mind to take his medication. No, I did not. He shook his head. The doctor nodded as if he'd expected this answer, but his expression was troubled. And yet, your blood pressure is quite stable right now. Wow, you're actually healthier than most people, based on these results. Chairman Yu was stunned. Huh? He thought he was going to die once he entered the final rest stage, but instead, his high blood pressure had completely disappeared. The doctor kept studying the file carefully. Plus, all your organs are working perfectly. If I didn't know your age, I'd think these were the vital signs of a healthy 20-year-old. How was this even possible? The doctor was more amazed than Myung Han himself. Even though he had seen it all happen right in front of him, the ink was still wet on the first set of test results from when Chairman Yu first came in. But now, here were these brand new numbers that told a completely different story. Can you explain something like this? Chairman Yu seemed like a completely different person lately. Just last night he was battling a deadly illness that no one thought he could survive. The doctor scratched his head, stunned. I've been doing this for 30 years. He said, shaking his head in disbelief. But I've never seen anything like this. This is just incredible. It can only be called a miracle. Some patients suffering from the eternal sleep disease, a condition where people fall into a deep, irreversible coma, had suddenly woken up. And here's the kicker. They were healthier and stronger than ever before. It was as if they'd been reborn. How was this possible? No one had any answers, but one thing was certain. Something extraordinary had just happened, leaving everyone speechless. Could this really be anything other than a miracle? The doctor said with a grin. Congratulations. Your eternal sleep disease is gone. You're cured. If you wanted to, you could even go run a marathon right now. But Myung Han stayed calm and didn't celebrate just yet. He thought deeply for a moment before asking, are there any security cameras in my hospital room? The doctor looked puzzled and replied, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Why do you ask? Someone replied. There's something I want to check. Chairman Yu said, his voice steady. Is there a camera in the room or outside? No cameras in here, came the answer, but there should be one in the hallway. Chairman Yu nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. This was way more than just luck. It felt like someone powerful had stepped in, and he had a pretty good idea who that might be. He didn't usually owe anyone favors, but now he felt like he owed them big time. And Chairman Yu wasn't exactly thrilled about it. How do you even thank someone for saving your life? Before anything else, he really wanted to know the name of the person who had helped him. He asked to see the security footage from the night before. But when they checked the tapes, there wasn't much to see, nothing out of the ordinary. At least, the only strange thing, one of the guards said, pointing to a part of the video, is that this door here glitched out for a few seconds. That was it. No clues about who his mysterious rescuer might be. The windows were locked tightly from the inside, so the only way into Chairman Yu's hospital room was through the door. All 4 guards gave the same story, and they were pros who wouldn't slack off on the job. Not even a tiny insect could have sneaked in unnoticed. Chairman Yu's mind raced. He had no idea Jin-Woo might have a stealth skill, so his thoughts were all over the place. Secretary Kim burst into the monitoring room, looking worried. "Sir, I've checked on what you asked about," Secretary Kim said. Chairman Yu looked at him expectantly, and Secretary Kim glanced around the room, then leaned in close to whisper. "The association says Hunter Sung was definitely in Japan at the time. They think he'll come back to Korea tomorrow." Chairman Yu stayed quiet for a moment. He'd been so sure only Jin-Woo could pull this off, but it turns out he was wrong. It couldn't have been Hunter Sung, but then why? Even though all the clues pointed to someone else, he just couldn't shake this nagging feeling. It had to be Jin-Woo. But there was one thing Chairman Yu and Jin-Woo agreed on. They didn't waste time worrying about things they couldn't control. "Got it," he said, changing the topic. "The doctor says I'm so healthy I could even run a marathon if I wanted to. So I'll be back at work tomorrow." The chairman asked, "Make sure everything's ready." "Okay." He seemed back to normal now. Secretary Kim held back a nervous laugh before speaking up again. "Hey Chairman Yu, do you know what people are saying about you online?" she asked with a grin. The internet was buzzing, everyone was talking about the shocking news of his comeback. But when he heard this, the chairman just gave a cool smile and said, "I've seen it all before." His calm reaction made Secretary Kim giggle even more. "What? They're saying you're immortal." "I'm mortal." Chairman Yu wasn't one to grin, but he couldn't suppress his growing smile. Immortal, that was much better than when they called him King Midas, or Poker Face. "Huh?" Chairman Yu repeated the word. "I'm mortal." Immortal. Huh? It was the perfect way to describe someone who never gave up under any circumstances, even to a terminal illness. Chairman Yu smiled broadly, thrilled about his second chance. "I really like this," he said happily. Meanwhile, back in Korea, everyone was buzzing with excitement over Chairman Yu's news. On the other side of things, Jin-Woo had returned to Japan, and managed to gather all 29 giant shadow soldiers. Finally, after all that effort, he watched as they stood before him, lined up neatly in the order he'd collected them. Jin-Woo couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion at the sight. Tracking down giant corpses and gathering their shadows felt like being on an epic video game mission. But the real-life reward was even more awesome. With 29 shadow warriors by his side, he felt unbeatable. The only bummer was that one was missing. Out of 30 giant magic beasts that broke free from the gate, one stayed behind to guard it. Each had escaped, but one slipped away into the ocean. He still felt super proud of gathering the other 29 giants. Now that they were all together, the ruined city around them felt pretty packed. But he hadn't brought them just to stand around looking cool. He had a purpose in mind. He asked them, "Who's the strongest among you?" He needed someone strong to lead them. Just like Baru, Igris and Fang led their own groups,